Hi, Marco.
Hi.
Hi. I just remembered my question. I was going to text it to you and send it later.
Okay.
If I forget.
Good.
Yeah.
We got a lot of people joining us. This is wonderful.
Yay.
Just a few, please.
My name is Mike.
Join the meeting.
Can you hear me, anybody?
Yeah, we can hear you, Mike.
Okay, I'm here. Can't see me, but you can hear me.
Like a few people are on mute, but I see some waving from Kathy Carter. Well, it's 5 o'clock right now. It looks like we have about 32 participants, and we might have a few more folks come in. Mariko, do you think I should wait just another minute?
Yeah, I would just wait just a few more minutes here. Maybe just a couple minutes after 5.
Robin already beat us to the intro punch. So if folks do want to go to the chat bar right now, you can go ahead and put your name, your affiliation, and what your role is with each affiliate. I'll do an overview to point that out, but some folks who are familiar with the chat can go ahead and start introducing themselves via chat.
Great amount of people joining us today. And Lindsay, I'm making a list of all the folks that are joining us here.
Great. Right. Well, it is 5:02. We're at 39 participants. I think I'll go ahead and get started. I'll start with an overview of Zoom, and then we can move in from there. But hi, everyone. My name is Lindsay Heiduke. I haven't been able to meet all of you yet, but I'm approaching my 1-year work anniversary with ACF. I serve as the affiliate program officer with Mariko. And we're excited to have you for this planned giving meeting.
Zoom call, what's up? Urgent?
Some people please go on mute if you're
I'll talk to you later.
Mariko as a host may be able to help, but that's part of the Zoom orientation. I know that we're all getting familiar with a lot of virtual meetings with all of the social distancing, so this might be a little bit of review. But I just wanted to first note that we are recording this training so that we can share this out to other advisory board members and reference some of the information shared today. And we are also mostly muting everybody on this call so that we can move through a pretty big agenda. And we'll really be asking folks to stay muted. And if you have any questions, you can put that into the chat box throughout, and we'll revisit it and have a Q&A at the end if we have some time. So for folks that are on laptops, it's going to look a little different if you're on a tablet or if you're on your iPhone. But if you're videoing in on your laptop, if you hover over the black screen with all of the faces, on the bottom left, or excuse me, on the bottom a menu appears, and on the bottom left there's a little microphone, so you can mute or unmute yourself there. You can also start or stop your video. So if you need to get up and go take care of some business, you can just go ahead and stop your video. If you also go to your bottom menu, you can click on participants and it'll show you a running list of everyone who's joined the call so far. And you can also click on chat, and that'll be a great place that appears on the bottom of your participant list. And you can keep track of folks who currently are introducing themselves. So they're sharing their name, their affiliate, and the role that they play. So please go ahead and continue to type in there, since we can't do a full round of introductions for everyone. And then you can also notice if you go to your name in the participant list, you can click on the option for more, and you can rename yourself if you want to put your first and last name or your affiliate on your name itself. You can go ahead and make that adjustment. So just bringing attention back to the chat box. So we've tested it out with introductions. Elizabeth Miller also included a brief bio for herself in there as well. And we encourage you to type in your questions throughout the training so that Mariko will help monitor questions and we'll be able to check in on those. And then, like I said, at the end, if we have some time, we'll do some Q&A. But if we don't get to your question during the training, we will follow up with you one-on-one, and we'll make sure that the information is shared out as well. One more feature to point out between the participant list and your chat list is a raise hand feature. So if during the Q&A you want to unmute so you can ask a question, we'll ask you to raise your hand at that point so that we can know to call on you. But we won't be doing the raise hand throughout so that we can just keep things moving. So with that, I want to go ahead and do an overview of the training itself today. And I just wanted to check with Elizabeth if she would like me to share my screen or if she will share hers.
I will share mine. I will share mine, except it says the host needs to enable me to share.
Okay. Mariko will probably push a button somewhere. But we're really excited to have so many folks join today's training. And we wanted to let everyone know right off the bat that this is going to be in a series of trainings, because as we came together to come up with the agenda and topics, We really wanted to use today's training as an opportunity to provide everyone with a shared foundation about legacy giving, and then make sure you're all comfortable with the concept and approach, and that we will follow this up with another training where you can really dig into some of the practical sides of things, including coming up with a legacy plan for creating your own program. So we do have these kind of 4 parts today, and we're excited to kind of crescendo towards hearing from Chilkat Valley for some peer-to-peer learning. So we're excited to have Anne Myron join us from their advisory board. And Mariko will also be joining throughout to share some affiliate-specific programming pieces around legacy giving. But and I wanted to let folks know again about the future training. We just scheduled it, so we'll send out information about that. But we'll show it again on the screen at the end. But June 18th, put a hold on your calendars for 5 to 6:30, where we'll talk more about really digging in and creating your legacy plan. And then we'll also follow up with a survey for today's session, so it can help inform and plan this upcoming one for more information about what you're looking for specifically. So with that, I'm excited to turn things over to Elizabeth Miller. She's ACF's Vice President of Development and Communications, and she's going to move us through parts 1 through 3. Thank you. And Elizabeth just needs to unmute so we can hear her lovely voice. Maybe, yeah.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes.
I got ahead of myself. So thank you very much, Lindsay, for the good introduction, and thank you all for joining us this evening. We're very happy to be able to share this information with you now. So I just want to start with the basics, and this probably will be review for some of you, but what is legacy giving? And wanted to make sure that we aren't confused by the term planned giving, because they're really basically the same. We talk about legacy giving here. You'll hear it also called planned giving, but they both mean a donation that's made by an individual through a will or another formal giving vehicle, usually, but not always, at the end of life. Legacy gifts are typically prepared with an estate planning attorney or a financial planner or a CPA. Legacy gifts are really meant to reflect the values and desires of the donor. And as the name suggests, many donors want to leave a legacy or a memory of their life through their end of life or posthumous giving. I've practiced saying that word. In most cases, a legacy gift is made upon someone's death, or it's activated with the death of someone. However, it's usually well planned, way in advance of that event. So there are a variety of vehicles that donors can use to leave a legacy gift. And the easiest and most popular are either a bequest to a charity in a will or an estate plan, or naming the charity as a beneficiary of a retirement account. There are certainly more complicated vehicles like charitable remainder trusts and charitable gift annuities. Each vehicle has different tax benefits to the donor. However, you as a representative of your community foundation do not need to be an expert on these different vehicles. It is important that the donor has access to information about the various options, but it isn't your job to educate them about the options. We want to leave that for the professional advisors. Our jobs as representatives of the community foundations is to explain the benefits of legacy giving to the donor. Donors will most often be working with their own professional advisors. However, if they want referrals, there are professional advisors, some of whom are part of our affiliate network, a few of whom are with us today, that we can refer interested donors to. So when you talk to people about legacy giving, it can be difficult to get started. And I have developed these 3 sets of questions to help prepare myself for talking to others. And I want to go through them with you. As we go through them today, I encourage you to think about your own answers to these questions. So the first set of questions are, who do you love, care for, find comfort from? Who gives you practical support, or who has given you practical support? And the people who come to mind in answer to these questions are those that you probably already have included in your will or estate plan, or that you are definitely, you will include them. And this is the answers to this set of questions. This is usually the main focus of a will or estate plan. However, for many people, the answers to this questions in number 2 help take an extra step in preparing a will or estate plan. And that is, what gets you out of bed every morning? What issues keep you awake at night? And so the answers to these questions might be causes and organizations that either you work with now or you have worked with, and or that you want to ensure that a focus is, that there is focus in your will or estate plan, in your legacy giving. And we would never assume that the number 2 would take precedence over number 1. In fact, the assumption is that number 1 is usually the main focus of a will, and the answers to number 2 might be secondary, but it just depends on the individual. This answers, the questions in number 3 are, where is the biggest need, and where do you find information to help you make decisions about those answers in number 2. And the answers to these questions can often be found at your community foundation. If not at your affiliate, then certainly at the ACF office. So I'm going to stop now and ask Marco if there are any questions in the chat box at this point.
Hi, so most of the questions are just around the presentation materials and the recording. So I guess I'll just share with all of you, the presentation materials and the recording are available, will be available to all board members after this training. So we will certainly share that out with folks, including the materials that Ann Myron will share later on in the presentation. She's got some great examples from Chilkat Valley Community Foundation. So those will also be available to share out with folks at the end. And that's it.
Okay. So we'll move on to part 2 that we called the impact of legacy giving. And starting with the question of, why do people leave a legacy gift? And the reasons certainly vary from person to person. And as we just discussed, really a passion for a cause or organization is one important reason. For some donors, it's really making sure that their values live on. For others, it's about ensuring that their name lives on in perpetuity. So there are many reasons, and these three buckets, the passion for the cause, legacy of their values, and recognition in perpetuity, capture a lot of them, but you'll hear others as well, I'm sure. So when and how do people leave a legacy gift? Legacy gifts, as we've already referred to, are often very well planned. Bequests are included in wills or estate plans, and first wills are often created around the time of the birth of their first child. Bequests are added or changed when wills are revised, often on the occurrence of a life event, including another birth, divorce, marriage, moving, a death in the family, retirement, sale of a business or real estate, or an inheritance or a windfall. All of those might motivate somebody to revise their will or maybe even make one for the first time. Research actually shows that if a person has at least one charity named in their will, they actually will have an average of 6 charities named in their will. And the average charitable bequest is $35,000 in the United States. And so while multi-million-dollar bequests garner a lot of media attention, the reality is that bequests are possible for most people. However, research also shows that less than 1/3 of Americans have a will or estate plan. So when we're talking about when or how do people leave a legacy gift, if a donor wants to leave a bequest to the community foundation in their will or estate plan, they work with their attorney to add the appropriate language to their document. And the bequest language is very simple. We have some samples if they want it, but the attorneys usually know what needs to be there. They do need our legal name and our tax ID number. But in addition, well, that language then directs a part of their estate to the community foundation. But in addition to that document, the formal will or estate plan, the donor does need to have another document on file with ACF that specifies the use of their testamentary gift. Usually the one-page donor intent legacy society form is enough, so that upon the death of the donor, when the bequest is received at ACF, there are instructions on file that direct the gift to your community foundation's endowment fund, or whichever fund that donor is leaving the gift to. So I'm going to take a breath there and ask Marco to share a story or two of legacy gifts that have benefited affiliates.
Sure, thanks, Elizabeth. I think the one that we can most point to, again, our affiliate program is only 12 years old, so lots of different legacy gifts have been set up, but not necessarily realized at this time. But we can certainly point to, the Seward Community Foundation. At the end of their second year, they received a $1.9 million bequest from Tony Rollo. Outside of that, of course, we've received, 20 plus legacy gifts, especially over the last 4 years, as you all have been really focused on building up your legacy giving programs within your affiliate. I did pull some numbers from those 20 plus bequests. And what I can share is, as Elizabeth was noting before, you know, a lot of folks don't have $1.9 million to bequest out, but a lot of people do have assets, you know, at the end of their life that they do want to give to charities. And so the average gift that we're seeing, at least through the affiliate program with Legacy Gifts, the average number is around $40,000 per legacy gift, which is higher than the national average that Elizabeth noted. I'd also like to point out that affiliates are traditionally higher than the national average, including retention rates. We're at 60%, which is significantly higher than retention rates for donors nationally. So just wanted to share those little tidbits with you on legacy gifts. Additionally, we also have another wonderful legacy gift story that we want to share that's very timely. But my friend and coworker there, Ann Myron from Chilkat Valley, is going to share that later on in the presentation. So thanks, Elizabeth, so much for the time.
And that completes this section of part 2. Are there any questions in the chat box, Marco?
Actually, we did. We just got a couple in. So Margaret Custer from Ketchikan, she does have a question for you, Elizabeth. What is the average bequest amount in Alaska, or at least to ACF funds? That would be interesting to see compared with national averages.
So other than the information that you just shared, Marco, I don't have any calculations right now, but we could certainly look at that overall, because your number was just affiliates, right?
Yes, it was just affiliate legacy gifts. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Margaret, I can look that up.
Okay. So Robin Sherman from Sitka had a question. Let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. I think she asked that privately. So hold on one sec. Oh, okay, Margaret Custer, it looks like we kind of answered that in regards to affiliates, but we will get back to you on the ACF funds average. So, oh, go ahead. Okay, Robin said, go ahead and ask a question. So Robin asked, I have a question about the additional documentation that Elizabeth mentioned. Is it insufficient for a donor to leave a gift to, for example, Sitka Legacy Foundation - the Alaska Community Foundation, or the Alaska Community Foundation for the benefit of Sitka with the ACF EIN number?
The second example would work. The bequest is to the Alaska Community Foundation, comma, the Sitka Legacy Foundation with the ACF EIN number. That would work. But oftentimes the legal name of our organization is the Alaska Community Foundation, and that might be the name that the attorney puts in the document. And so to just make sure that we are able to honor donor intent, we encourage donors to complete that second or the donor intent form.
And Elizabeth, we also, when we're looking at donor intent, we would also request donors to identify the fund that they would like to leave their bequest to. Is that correct? So they would want to.
That's what
they would want to list.
That's what that form does.
Okay, perfect. So they'd want to list in this example, Greater Sitka Legacy Foundation Fund.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Those are the questions I have right now. Looks like it for now, but I'll keep checking the box.
Okay. So part 3 is talking about legacy giving. And first we wanted to talk about why we talk about legacy giving. And one of the reasons is it really does help donors and their families. By talking about legacy giving, we can motivate the creation of a will or estate plan. Many people think it's difficult and they procrastinate about this task. However, as one attorney put it, it is not as difficult as a situation that loved ones may be left in if there isn't a will or estate plan in place upon the death of the donor. So that's one reason to talk about legacy giving. And for many people, large here and now gifts are not a possibility because their assets aren't in cash. However, in many cases, these people can and do make sizable testamentary gifts to causes and organizations they care about. So we can really help donors and their families. We can also, of course, help our communities. Over the next 25 years, baby boomers will pass along nearly $48 trillion in assets to their heirs or charities. We as representatives of community foundations need to be talking about legacy giving to ensure that we secure the future of our communities via legacy gifts. A legacy gift can fulfill the dreams of a donor and secure the future of our communities. So those two reasons really inspire me to talk about legacy giving, and I hope they inspire you. So to whom do we talk about legacy giving? You know, we've talked about that it's sometimes uncomfortable to talk about legacy giving, and because there are three taboos that are present. We're talking about death, which very few people like to do. We're talking about money, which also is a big taboo in many places. And then we're also talking about, when we're talking about creating some of these giving vehicles, paying someone money to help give away something. And worse yet, there's work involved in pulling together asset information, making difficult decisions, participating in what could be perceived as endless meetings with professional advisors, reviewing and signing documents. And none of these are giving the donor the pleasure that they get from actually making a meaningful gift. So there are some obstacles when it comes to talking about legacy giving and figuring out who we're going to talk with. So my answer to the question about to whom do we talk is, number one is you start with yourself and make sure that you have done your own will or estate plan. Because if you haven't, you really don't know how the process works and how it feels. And so you will have much more understanding for the donor's thought process, and you'll just be able to share stories and sharing their frustrations so much better. So put yourself as the first person to talk about legacy giving with. Then once you have created your will or estate plan, or made some other form of a legacy gift, then you can reach out to others. And the ones to reach out, we like to talk about them as the low-hanging fruit, current and past board members. So many of you on the call will reach out to your fellow board members and past board members in your communities. Maybe people have moved to different location, you could still reach out to them. And then the next level of folks would be friends of yours who that you know have philanthropic or charitable intent. And if you still have time, then you could move on to what I call the flags. And flags are female, long-term, aged, older givers. So because females often outlive males, you're usually talking to females, you always want to look at long-term givers. They don't have to be big givers to your organization, just frequent and long-term. And then older than younger. And so those are the givers that you would look at on your donor list as possible candidates for a legacy gift. So if you know who you're going to talk to, then you have to know how are you going to talk about legacy giving. Well, first of all, think about what I just said about to whom you'd be talking. You're going to be talking to someone you know that has an interest either in your community, in philanthropy, in making a difference. So it shouldn't be a cold call. This is somebody that you know or that you have been introduced to and that you know has some interest in charity. And then you want to talk about what you know that might connect with that person. For example, at this time, you might say, you know, in these days of COVID-19, many have a heightened awareness of our mortality, including me. And I recently redid my will and I added a bequest to the Community Foundation. And it got me thinking that other board members might be interested in the same. And you can sub in board members with current, past, or maybe community supporters. So it's just a way to open the conversation about it, but you're tying your own experience to that. And then you can make the ask at some point, and I have it here in the writing, but you might say, you know, Jane, I know as a former board member, you have great interest in the Community Foundation, and your longtime annual support of the Community Foundation is really appreciated. Have you ever considered including a bequest in your will to the Community Foundation's endowment fund? When you make that ask, you might be surprised to learn that they'll say, oh, I already have. And that's because only 30% of the people who leave a bequest to charity in their will inform the charity before their death. And so don't be surprised if they say that. And that's when you want to say, oh, we didn't know about that. Can I ask you to complete this fund? It's the donor intent form that Marco will go over in a few minutes, so that we have that on file and there would be no doubt on where that money would go to. So, and then if they have an interest, and they haven't already done so, but they have an interest in making a bequest or some form of other legacy giving, listen very carefully. If they want to add the Community Foundation, your Community Foundation endowment fund to a will or estate plan, you can provide them the language. We have that on our website. If they want to name the Community Foundation as a beneficiary of a retirement plan, they would add in the Community Foundation, Alaska Community Foundation, and the EIN number and fill out that donor intent form so the funds would go where they want them to. And if they aren't quite sure what they want to do, or if what they want to do is more complicated than we're talking about now, you can set up a meeting with the donor and yourself if you want, and the program officer, Marco or Lindsay, and Marco or Lindsay will talk to you about that and will include me or Nina as appropriate. So it is important after you ask that question, to listen carefully to what the donor wants to do and take a few notes and share what you learn with your program officer so that we can be as prepared as we can when we chat with the donor. Because a planned gift, a legacy gift, as we've said, can not only fulfill the donor's dream and your community's future, but it in some cases, the complicated gifts can provide enhanced income to a donor before their death. It can relieve donors of a burden. It can facilitate business succession planning. It can take care of a disabled child or an aged parent. So again, you don't have to know all the details, but if you listen to what their needs are, you can share that with us and we can help them. Also consider baby steps. Your donor may not need to do a full-blown estate plan right now. Perhaps a very simple beneficiary designation will do the trick, and we can help you give them the right information there. So I also want to mention that you can be sure that we have the ability to really customize their gift, and you can help with that by listening so carefully. So I'm going to turn it over to Marco again, who is going to share information about the match and the form.
Sure. Elizabeth, a question really quick just came in from Julie from Cordova. She said, what was that about helping the donor financially? I think she was meaning that there are tax benefits that you touched on.
Yeah, so there are certain more complex legacy gifts, planned gifts, charitable remainder trusts, and charitable gift annuities that help donors now and help charities upon when the donor dies. So they're complex, and we aren't going to go into details now, but there are options.
Mm-hmm. Great, thanks, Elizabeth. So for this part, I'm going to share my screen really quick. So I'm going to talk just briefly to remind folks about the wonderful legacy giving match component that we have in our 4-year match from ACF and Rasmussen. We are in our last year of the 4-year match program. So I pulled up this affiliate program match incentives document. I'm sure many of you have seen this before. It just went through a refresh recently with the addition of the bonus $25,000 for operating endowment and legacy gifts that was just released in fall last year from ACF and Rasmussen Foundation. But I wanted to point out, excuse me, I wanted to point out here that we have been matching legacy gifts for affiliate funds during this time of match. So it's wonderful to share with donors that their future gifts can be matched by here and now dollars. And so one way that we can really assess the value of that gift is through the declaration of intent form. So I'm going to pull that up right here so you all can see it. I'm sure many of you have seen it, or you filled it out, or you shared it with donors. But this is the form that we use to be able to notate a legacy gift intention from a donor. And it also allows us to assess that value for match. So we match 5% of the assessed value of a legacy gift up to $5,000 per bequest or per gift. So one thing to note on here, we do need, of course, information on the name of the donor, and then, of course, which fund it's going to. We do have this legacy donor intent form, declaration of intent form specifically for affiliates. So we did make accommodations with some of this language that I'm highlighting here. We've also changed some of that to be specific per community, and you'll see that once we go into Chilcat's examples. One other thing to note is just if you're working with a donor and they're not really sure about sharing the amount of this assessed value, they certainly don't have to. But of course, letting them know that they can get matched now if we can have that assessed value of the gift and we can make that calculation for you. It is a wonderful selling point for donors. And most of the legacy gifts that have come in, those are from current or former advisory board members. And so we love seeing those come in. And to Elizabeth's point, looking here close to home is the first place to start. One thing also to note, it does say Legacy Society. So there, excuse me, there is an area here that asks the donor, would you like to be part or of the Legacy Society for Alaska? If you do, please initial here. That is a Legacy Society for Alaska Community Foundation and affiliates. So affiliates do not have separate legacy societies. They are part of our broad legacy society for Alaska. So we're all part of that. And they can certainly ask to be included on that list, but they do not have to be listed either. So they can make an anonymous legacy gift as well. One more thing to note that has come up in the past: if a donor does list the affiliate as a secondary beneficiary, we do not match for that. We only match for primary beneficiary or primary designation. But certainly we are very joyful when we get any legacy gift that comes in. But I did want to note that as well. So with that, I think that's all I had to share around donor intent forms, how you can get matched here and now dollars for it. And let me just, Elizabeth, let me look really quick in the chat box to see if anything's come in. So one did come in from Margaret Custer. She said, I've seen the Legacy Society intent form and the IRA info sheet. Is there a combined information packet about legacy gifts we might be able to provide to a potential donor who is interested in giving but not sure how they want to give?
I don't think we have anything like that at this point, but it sounds like a good idea for a flyer of some sort.
So Margaret, I will make note of your question and we'll follow up with Elizabeth and Lindsay after this, and we'll make sure to get back to you on that. And that's the only question that I see in the chat box, Elizabeth.
Okay, so that completes my section of the presentation tonight. So I will share my screen so Ann Myron can begin.
Great. Well, I'm going to actually do a quick introduction of Ann Myron. I've had the pleasure of working with her for many, many years. I was actually just telling Ann that I saw a very old, sorry, Ann, a very old photograph of her and Sammy Pokrifke and Carol Simonetti, the previous CEO of ACF, back in 2008 when Chilkat Valley Community Foundation first signed their fund agreements. And there's Ann Myron standing in the back. She has served as past chair of the CVCF board. She's served in the steering committee, and she's now chair of the donor development committee on Chilkat Valley Community Foundation. And so I'm really honored that she is presenting today to do some affiliate peer-to-peer learning with all of you. And so with that, I'm gonna ask Ann to take it away.
Thanks, Marco. Hi, everybody. So I'm going to kind of talk about the experience that we've had at the Chilkat Valley Community Foundation. And starting in 2008, when CVCF began working through the process of becoming an affiliate, we were asked to create both a plan and also to complete what was called the readiness tool. And legacy giving was included in both of those documents right from the start, because the steering committee realized that the big gifts, the ones that were going to grow the fund quickly, would likely be legacy gifts. And one of the activities that we had to do during that process was to analyze the makeup of our communities and look at who lived here and how they gave, and whether our community was going to be able to both establish and sustain a community foundation. And in that section of the readiness tool, we noted that the graying of the community presented a wonderful opportunity to educate the population about planned giving options, and we noted that planned giving would be an important part of growing our community fund. And when we answered the question about how will our community foundation affiliate help in the realization of community dreams and visions, again, the first bulleted activity dealt with encouraging planned giving as well as annual giving in order to build a significant fund. When we were going through this process, we talked a lot about how our community had so many nonprofits and so many needs, and that we just couldn't anticipate large gifts on a regular basis or annually from our donors. And that meant we were going to have to build our legacy program. And so the steering committee decided at the very beginning, and all of the subsequent advisory boards have continued to acknowledge that legacy giving is important work, part of our work. And we also understood and still understand that first we need to connect with our donors and get them interested in our organization and supporting our organization, and that we need to build relationships with them over time. And we recognize that legacy gifts will depend on a strong connection, a stellar reputation in our community for the foundation, and that it would take time and that we had to take it step by step. And we were told early on that it often takes 10 to 12 years before of association, before a donor is likely to leave a legacy gift in their will or a bequest. And so we knew we were going to have to be in this for the long haul. But we didn't waste any time in integrating a legacy giving program into our work. And our very first program for the general public back in the fall of 2008 was a planned giving presentation done by Steve Mahoney, who was an Anchorage lawyer and was associated with ACF at the time. And he came to Haines and worked with our board and educated us about a little bit about planned giving and legacy giving. And then he did a presentation for the community, and people came. And so we had a good response to that. And so ever since then, we've on almost an annual basis held one program each year for the public that relates to legacy giving or financial planning. And we usually bring in a lawyer or a professional from Juneau or Sitka or Anchorage, and they give a presentation, and then they spend part of the next day giving 20-minute free consultations that are private to people that have signed up in advance, and talking people through some of the basics on a specific in a specific way that relates to what they're really interested in. And as far as I know, in all the years, we've always filled every slot that we've had available for people to come. And sometimes it's the same people come back and want to ask further questions. And then usually it's new people coming in that are now willing to talk about legacy giving. And one year, Susan Foley, who is the former chair of the ACF board and a lawyer in Anchorage, came, and she did those two things, the presentation and the individual slots, but she also attended our chamber luncheon and gave a presentation, and that was actually quite popular with our local business leaders. So we keep trying to hit it and have CVCF out there in the community and offering opportunities to learn about legacy giving. We've also always included it in our strategic planning sessions as a board, and usually have activities each year that the committees are working on. And that can range from working on a brochure, which we have created a brochure years ago, and now that's been updated at least twice. Or we also have included donor highlights in our newsletters and on the web. And this is a great way, we felt, to build connection with our donors and do some stewardship and build a relationship. And so those are an interview with the donor, and then a highlight with a picture is put in the newsletter or on the web. And some of those donors that we've done highlights have actually become legacy donors in the pursuing years. We've included articles and each year in our summer newsletter and our annual December newsletters. And we've got some examples to show you that we'll go over in a few minutes. But over time, those have changed. At first, they were just words. They were talking about it. They were introducing it. And now we've been able to move into where we're actually highlighting the donors and letting the donors tell their stories about why they wanted to make a legacy gift to CVCF. When this most recent matching campaign happened in 2017, we created an insert about the matching funds for legacy gifts. And that insert went out in our ask letter that year and actually was quite successful in helping us get some legacy gifts. At our 2018 donor appreciation event, we had a testimonial by a legacy giving board member to encourage others and to talk about the process and talk about the form and what that required and about the match opportunity. And more recently, our board has decided to start a campaign, 20 by 2020, and that's part of this whole 4-year campaign. And that is, we wanted to have 20 legacy donors that had signed the Declaration of Intent forms by 2020. And in order to do that, we felt we had to amp up our communications with donors about this. And so we now send out an annual letter to a targeted set of our donors about legacy giving, that talks about legacy giving and how you do it and what the benefits are. And we always have an enclosure in that. And the first year it was our brochure, and the second year it was a one-page document that highlighted 3 of our legacy donors on one side and then had tips on ways to give and legacy giving on the back side. And we have that to show you as well. Other things that we've been doing over time is just providing links when appropriate to materials that are about planned giving, or during, for instance, this pandemic, we've sent links out for people to advanced healthcare directives and health power of attorney forms. Recently, today actually, Sarah sent out an email that alerted our donors that there was an event happening tonight by Zoom that the local public library is hosting that's about legacy giving. So we're always looking at ways to kind of put information out there in the donors' hands to keep them thinking about this and hopefully eventually acting on it. One thing we've talked about for years was a legacy house party, and it took a lot of talking until we really got comfortable enough that we thought we were going to do that. And we actually had it planned, a date, a place, and everything, a guest list and speakers, and it was going to happen at the end of February for the first time, and it snowed like crazy, and the driveway wasn't a possibility, and so we canceled that and postponed it, and before we could set a date, COVID-19 set in. So although we're now ready to do that, we haven't been able to do it yet, so we'll see how that goes. But Marco's going to just share a few of the things that we've done over the years on the screen as examples. So these programs that we always had flyers up and information around town, and then we would also put an article in the following newsletter that talked about who was there and what they talked about and numbers of people that had attended and so forth. So this was an example of when Beth Chapman came from Juneau at least twice, and another person from her office came another time. And again, very popular programs. Our legacy brochure started out years ago with the help of a volunteer graphic designer in our community. It has morphed over time, and now this one was one that ACF staff helped us put together. And it's a trifold and talks about the community foundation. It highlights some donors, and it talks about the difference it's going to make in our community. We then amended that to include information about the match. And since we've already completed that, we then had to re-amend that to take out the match information. But we have this available at all of our events and use it with donors when it's appropriate. This was the one-page insert that went out in our most recent annual legacy giving letter. And it highlights 3 different sets of donors, a childless married couple, a single professional, and a married couple with 2 kids. So we tried to have diversity in the type of donors. And then they told their story about why it was they wanted to give the community foundation. And it was really fun putting this together because they were all really excited about it and happy to be giving to the community foundation. So that's that joy that donors get. And then the flip side of that, like I said, was just a bulleted list about how you can give and some general information. And again, we kind of hope this would hang around longer than the letter and draw some interest to people, that they might keep it on their desk and it might remind them a few more times. And then we always put something in our newsletters. So the next 3 examples are the newsletters over time. So this was an early one talking about planned giving, and we had some donors who had said they had made a gift in their will, but they had not yet completed the donor intent form because we didn't even know about that at the time. So it was kind of fun to put that together. And then the next one was the one that came in the year of 2018 when we had the match, and we had 4 past or current board members and their husbands who all made gifts, legacy gifts. And so we highlighted them and we talked about how the match was working and how there was that possibility. And so that was 2018. And then last year we highlighted the young couple that has children who had gone ahead and made a legacy gift and completed the form. And then at the bottom of that, we then listed all the people, because in our community, we do get comments from people that when they, like the one before this, where they saw the pictures of the 4 couples that had done it, somebody made a comment to our board chair that, wow, that was really great. That reminded me that my wife and I should do that. And so it does make a difference in a small community to see names and faces with people that are doing legacy gifts. And then this was the little insert. It would obviously be cut in half here, and the flip side had other information, but we used a local high school graduate thinking about the future. And it talked about how the match worked and that it was available and how you could set it up to have that match. So for those of you that still have the opportunity to do a match, something like this, I think is a really great way of, again, getting the idea into people's hands.
And we can certainly share out some of these examples with other affiliates so they can copy paste, they can get inspiration from Chilkat Valley Community Foundation. It looks like you all have been doing it for many, many years. I remember some of those older ones, and you've refined it over time, and it would be wonderful to share out some of these great examples with everybody.
Yeah, we'd be happy to share. It cuts down the time it takes, which is great.
Right.
So with the advent of the donor intent forms and this match opportunity, we really decided that we needed to get serious about this. So we started our 20 by 2020 campaign, and there's no doubt that the match made a big difference and helped people take that step, including our community foundation board members, to take action. Currently, we have 19 legacy donors, so we're almost to our 20. The first 2 legacy gifts were gifts that were made anonymously, and their identity was only known by staff at ACF. We knew that the gift existed, but we did not know who had made that gift. The other 17 donors that have completed the Declaration of Intent form since 2017 are all known to us locally, and they all have come in since that match. The forms have all come in since the match became available. We started with our board and committee members, and because they are the ones that are most familiar with us and of course have the relationship. And 6 of our current and past board members have signed Declaration of Intent, and all of their spouses have done so as well. In addition, we have 2 committee members, and one of them was the woman who helped us design our first legacy brochure. So she came around with their Declaration of Intent when the match became available. And then the rest of those mostly came from our donors. But not all of our legacy gifts have come from someone who is a donor. So in summary, we started by learning about it ourselves and trying to be comfortable with talking about legacy giving. And then we focused on our community and education and varied opportunities to bring plan giving and legacy giving into community conversations and people's thoughts. And then we worked more directly with our own board. And then we moved on to committee members and donors as they expressed interest. But luckily throughout the process, we did continue to work to identify and keep other potential legacy donors informed. And that is going to bring me to our ending story. So yesterday, CVCF received notice that Lucy Harrell, an amazing philanthropist in our community, had left a gift to CVCF. We had contacted Lucy in the early days when CVCF first started and told her about our organization and our mission, our vision, and hoped to bring her on board, but she indicated at that time that she wanted to give to her local nonprofits of her choice for a while, and she would give directly to them. And so we continued to send her letters and updates and newsletters on occasion, just to keep her informed about the news and progress of CVCF. In the fall of 2017, when the match became available, we prepared a packet for Lucy that included a letter, information on the match, and some other information about CVCF and what had been happening. And we asked to have a meeting. And we had 2 board members who were ready to do that. And it ended up, they never got to meet with Lucy, but they did meet with her, the gentleman who helps her with finances and those sorts of things. So they met with him, had a talk, and left the packet. And we never got to meet with Lucy, but that information got passed on. And Lucy passed away recently. And she was a woman who gave so much to our community and who championed our assisted living facility, our veterans center, and nonprofit office, Sobolov Center. She gave generously, constantly to the museum, the library, the preschool, the radio station. And some of these were regular, normal gifts, and some of them were very large gifts, but never a gift to the Chilkat Valley Community Foundation. So yesterday, when we heard that Lucy had given to us, we were bowled off our feet and ever so grateful because we were informed that Lucy left us $1 million. So remember, it will take time, but legacy gifts do happen. Some will likely surprise you, but they'll all be wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Anne. That was wonderful. You have a bunch of thank yous and kudos in the chat box. Thank you for sharing those examples. Lots of folks saying they were really inspired by seeing all of the great materials, and that they're definitely gonna take your lead and steal some of the language and build up their own communications and marketing. So thank you so much for sharing CVCF's story. We really appreciate you being willing to present today.
Well, and I just want to say I may be presenting, but it's been the board and the committees that have been on the ground working it. So they really deserve the kudos because I'm just telling you what they did.
Please extend our gratitude to everyone on the board and committees as well. Well, we are just over on time, but I wanted to see if anyone had any burning questions that they wanted to pose to the group since we have everyone together right now. It looks like for those of you who do have to jet, since we're 4 minutes over, we just wanted to update you that evaluation will be emailed out to you. We are doing a second part legacy giving session. So this next part, we're gonna really dive deep into the details about how to create a legacy giving plan. But real quick, I just wanted to put out on to the group, because we did say we were gonna do a Q&A section while we have Elizabeth and Anne with us. Does anybody have, oh, it looks like a question just came in. Oh, a question came in to Elizabeth. Was there a particular time when you should start talking to donors? So when is a good time for the board, or when do you, I guess, know you're ready to start talking to donors about legacy giving?
So there's two questions there, I think.
Mm-hmm.
When is a good time to be talking to donors? You know, really, when they're about to do that first will is ideal, because if you get in the will, rarely are you taken out. You can be taken out, but once you're in, things are good. So that's one answer about when to talk to donors. But the other one is, when is your organization ready? And I would say that most of your organizations are very, if not ready, very, very close to being ready. You have a solid organization that has a stellar reputation in your community, and you have long-term donors. Many of you have long-term donors, and so you're ready, I believe. That's why we're doing this session now.
So Elizabeth, if I could, I guess, ask to the question about when people are ready, since we're really looking close to home, we're looking at, you know, talking with board members. Well, first asking yourself if you're ready, if your family's ready, and then looking really close to the board that you all serve with, and then looking just a little bit out to former board members. It seems like it would be a little bit more achievable since you're talking with board members that you talk with every month. It seems like that's more achievable if you start close to home and, you know, if you, like Ann said, you bring it up at monthly meetings, you talk about how important it is for your affiliate. That seems like it might be a little bit more attainable than looking outside of the board first. So you would recommend one, asking yourself and your family, but then two, talking with a board that you already meet with every month. Yes. Mm-hmm. Let's see if there's, so Robin had a comment. It says, just an idea for the future. It would be great if ACF and its affiliates could produce a short video on legacy giving with testimonials from donors who have made legacy gifts. I like that idea. Let's see. I do have another question. Do you plan a session or will you, let's see, do you plan a session on corporate giving? Would the asker of the question maybe expound a little bit on that? I'm not sure I understand that. Let's see. Okay, most people saying they have to leave. Yep. So I don't really see. Maybe it's talking about just corporate giving in general. Maybe we'll integrate some, you know, fundraising session on corporate giving. Maybe that's his question. Let's see if something came in. Nope, I think most people just have to go. Is there anything else, Ann or Elizabeth, that you'd like to add before Lindsay wraps us up?
Okay, I think we'll be quick. We'll send out an evaluation form for this session, and we'll also ask what you'd like to learn about at the next session, which will be on Thursday, June 18th. And we expanded the time from 5 to 6:30 so we can plan ahead and really dig into thinking about how to put a legacy plan together for your affiliate. So thank you all so much for joining in and participating. And that story for that final legacy gift was moving. Thank you for sharing it. It really brought it all together for me and probably for everyone else. Thank you all, and we'll follow up very soon.
Thanks, everyone.
It's like the quiet mute goodbyes and waves.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Thanks, Marco. Thanks, Lindsay. And thanks, Ann.
There's my wife, Erin.
Oh, hey guys. Hi. Bye. Bye.
Did you listen in on the whole webinar, Erin?
Thanks, everybody. She just walked in.
Yeah.